It does not mean that if this is what you do, you're going to be rich, right? It does not mean that if this is your approach in life, that you're going to get everything that you want. What I am saying, though, is that fulfillment is accessible if this is the lens through which you approach life. And in fact, it's that specific belief that makes me so uncomfortable with status quo, because I see a lot of times our systems in society are not built oftentimes in order for the maximum amount of people to maximize who they are.
Welcome. You are listening to Season 2 of the Bonafide Leaders Podcast, a podcast that exists to inspire legitimate and authentic leadership in the workplace and beyond, and I'm your host, Tim G. Williams. Now, here in Season 2, our theme is Making the Leap. You may call it leveling up, uncharted territory, or expanding your reach. It's those times in our life and our careers when we take on a new challenge. You'll discover how you can successfully navigate your own huge leaps as you hear stories from me and others. This season, I'm excited to be interviewing some exceptional leaders from a variety of fields who'll share some of the big leaps they've made. You'll get a glimpse into what's enabled both their professional and personal success. Now, a quick housekeeping note. If you're finding this podcast useful, remember to subscribe and be sure to leave a rating or review. Welcome into another edition of the Bonafide Leaders Podcast. I am your host, Tim G. Williams. And today, I have a man with the initials BS, but I do not think you're gonna hear too much junk come out of his mouth. His name is Byron Sanders. And Byron, I'm gonna read his bio real quick as he continues to laugh as we do this introduction. Yeah. Byron Sanders is a committed advocate for healthcare education, economic development, and creating equitable communities. He previously served as the president and CEO of Big Thought, where he explored innovative ways to narrow the opportunity gap. Byron believes it's each of our charges to shape society so that young people have the chance to live in the fullness of their innate greatness. His professional expertise spans the fields of banking and finance, education, philanthropy, and entrepreneurship. Before joining Big Thought, Byron served as vice president for U.S. Trust, now Bank of America, and as the executive director of the Dallas Education Foundation, where he cultivated philanthropic, corporate, and community relationships to support initiatives benefiting Dallas ISD students. He also served as vice president of Group Excellence, a privately held education company which served over 250,000 youth across the state of Texas. Now, Byron is recognized as an impactful leader across multiple sectors, and his list of accolades is extensive. In fact, the podcast would just keep going on repeat if I replayed all of his accolades, but I'm going to give you a few. He was named to the inaugural Art Desk 100 list. That's a list of creators, thinkers, and voices in art, performance, and thought. He's a 2023 honoree of the NCAA Legends and Legacy Community Award. That represents living legends. And yes, this man is not quite 50 years old. I don't think he's even 45 yet. 2022 Dallas Business Journal Most Admired CEO. And in 2020, he received the nation's most prestigious recognition in the field of social emotional education, the Castle O'Brien Award for Excellence in Expanding the Evidence-Based Practice of Social and Emotional Learning. He's also a TEDx speaker, a 2017 Presidential Leadership Scholar, and a board member at Dallas College Foundation, 4 Oak Cliff, the Dallas Mavericks Advisory Council, of which we also collaborated and served together for a little bit, to name a few. Byron is an alum of the University of Tulsa and now serves on the institution's Board of Trustees. And above all, his cup is most full spending time with his best friend and wife, Celeste, and prepare for it, their two galactically amazing children. Let me make sure I get that right.
That's right, brother.
So Byron, welcome in today, man. It's great to have you.
Man, it is an absolute pleasure to be here with you, Tim. Thank you, brother. And that was hilarious. I didn't see that one coming. I usually put the middle initial in there specifically because of this reason.
I just wanted to have a little fun.
No, you're doing the right thing. I would have done it too. I'd have done it too.
All right, so look, I start the podcast always with this question to the guest, which is, if you could have a dream job for 1 week, though, 1 week only, which job would that be and why?
I would be, this is coming out of left field. I admit this. I don't know how much good to society it brings, but I would jump off of high stuff, bro.
Oh.
I would be one of these, the guys who wear like those flying squirrel suits, right? The guys who jump off and like they're wearing the wing suits.
Yes.
That would be me. I have a bit of an adrenaline situation and never get to enact it, because I love my family and I have a lot of responsibilities. And I realize, why bring that risk into an already full life? But if I had my druthers,
wow,
I would be jumping off of stuff, man. I'd be hang gliding. I've just always loved that. And so imagine being the way I am.
Yes.
And in a family with nobody who likes roller coasters. So every time we go, they're like, ooh, let's go to the food court. And I'm like, nobody wants to just, how about the pirate ship? Something. But yeah, man, I would jump off of stuff. I'd probably be an instructor and, teach other people how to do it, but it's only so I would be able to do it myself.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is truly what they call left field. I love it though, because for a minute, my family, me and you shared that in common actually.
Okay.
They didn't really love the roller coaster thing either, but I'm a huge fan. I worked at Six Flags.
See?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's in me.
Right.
And so, you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
That's how I used to look at it. But that's incredible, man. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I know. And my wife has already said, unless you want to, you're going to get a separate life insurance policy.
True that.
Or something that's more robust.
True that.
We're not doing all of that. And I was like, that's fair. That's fair. Compromise.
The joys of marriage.
The joys.
All right. So look, let's get into this thing a little bit. Yeah. I want to break this thing into 3 parts today. I want to talk about your kind of, call it, professional experiences and the leaps that you've made through each of those. Part 2 of this thing is I really want to go into, man, all these different worlds that you live in is what I call it.
Yeah.
Which I always just admire guys and ladies who have not just depth, but breadth. And I want to talk about the mindset that goes into just how you navigate that. And then lastly, I want to talk about something new, a new venture that has been in the works for a little bit. I want to talk about that some.
Absolutely.
So let's go to part 1 here. I'm going to run through these leaps and then maybe just pause for a minute and just have you talk briefly about, maybe give us the backstory, even going back to college, of how you landed there. So a couple things, right? You become an intern, an inroads intern, like me. We also had that in common.
Yep.
At Pfizer. So you start off in healthcare.
Big Blue.
Yep. Then you make your way, get yourself a marketing degree. And then you go and become an employee for Pfizer. So you remain in healthcare. From there, you go to Group Excellence.
Yep.
Where you're now in kind of private education, tutoring kind of a world. You continue, right, in education with Dallas Education Foundation. But now you're kind of bringing multiple things together there.
Yeah.
And now you go to a private bank.
Yeah.
Okay, a Bank of America.
Yeah.
And then big thought, right? Back to the community, philanthropy, education, kind of all coming together. Whoa.
Whoa indeed.
What's the backstory? How does a guy wind up in all these different places?
Yeah, it's so funny, man. I had a mentee ask, he's like, man, tell me your path. I want to do exactly what you did. And I was like, that is not going to be possible, my friend. I'm going to tell you what it is, but I don't recommend it. Don't follow exactly what I did because I couldn't have planned this if I tried. The interesting thing as the headline is that every single step that you just named is as disconnected as it seems, makes total sense if refracted through the lens of a mission statement. And I'll tell you where that came from, but the mission statement is this. The mission of Byron Sanders, love my God with all my heart and soul, to be the husband, father, son, and brother according to what pleases him, and to work diligently and daily in my most sincere efforts to pursue my appointed purpose with honor, character, bravery, and love.
Can I drop the mic? For real?
I mean, it's on a nice, robust mic stand, but I'll slap it over.
That was beautiful, man.
Wrote it in 2007. It was a year after I graduated. And actually, it was a culmination of experiences that I'd had in college. So we were just talking before we got started. I graduated from the University of Tulsa. I didn't start there. I started at Southern Methodist University. I'm going to give you the abbreviated, highly abbreviated version of this, but there's a powerful insight that I was gifted with at an early age because of it. So growing up, Oak Cliff, DeSoto, tiny bit of Pleasant Grove. I grew up in Southern Dallas, right? I'm a Dallas kid. One of the reasons why I'm on 4 Oak Cliff's board right now. Let's go. 4 Oak Cliff. That's my hood. So growing up was interesting. Mother's an educator. Father worked a number of different jobs. But one of the things that I grew up under was the shadow of domestic violence. So my father, who dealt with a lot, I would learn later on, dealt with a lot of trauma as a child, did not resolve that and didn't really have access to any conversations, resources. As a result, it spilled out into our family and into our household. And he would attack my mother on a regular basis. And it shaped my worldview. Here's what happened. I became the kid who needed to be involved in stuff. Because if you're at practice, rehearsal, the big meet,
you're not at home.
Not at home.
Yeah.
And if mom's not at home, mom is safe. And I couldn't just go. I had to go and be excellent. Because if I was excellent, then I'm bringing home a medal or a sticker or a report card or a trophy or a funny story, something. Because then I'd run inside and be like, Dad, look, listen what happened. Here's a joke. Right? Trying to be a positive distraction, because if Dad was happy, I noticed Mom was safe.
Yeah.
So I developed this capacity of being not just a thermometer, but a thermostat. It was important for me not to just to read the room, but to be able to read the room and then move the room. And carrying that weight since I was 6 years old gave me a particular set of skills. So I could go and do a lot of different things at the same time. I learned how to have really high emotional intelligence, because that was survival for me. And that protected my mom for a long time. So fast forward, I get to college, having lived off of these skills that I've built, but not having resolved where it came from. I was being the toxic do-gooder. So, bro, I was just spraying good everywhere. I had no purpose, had no reason. There's a thing to do. Let me go do it, because, again, that's what kept us safe. I didn't have time to reflect and put all that together. And so being indiscriminate will sometimes lead you into places where you don't need to be. And so I was indiscriminately about to fix another thing, because I'm a fixer. And I joined a fraternity that I saw needed fixing, and I was going to fix it. I was going to go undercover, get my letters, become legit. Then there'll be this dramatic moment after I recruited my guys and we take over the chapter, be like, yeah, that's right.
You had it all worked out.
I had it all worked out, had the plan. Well, I got my letters, and we were bringing in some other guys. And one of my friends nearly lost his life. And I carry a lot of that responsibility. It was water night, and drank water all night. None of us, obviously, were pre-med majors, because we would have known.
There's a limit.
There's a limit. Yes, to water. You should stop. This brother was in a coma for several days. By the grace of God, he came out of it, survived. But this was like national news. And we were all expelled, everybody who was involved.
Wow. And
so I went from being the kid who was literally the poster child at Southern Methodist to now being in the news for as one of the men who almost took this wonderful brother's life.
Wow.
And I was in a dark place for a long time, but then that's when movement on my behalf that I could not have planned, asked for, or requested began working. Because Earl Johnson was at the University of Tulsa, and he was responsible for admissions at the time. He was a brother.
Brother, for those listening.
Sorry. He is an African-American man.
Interpretation.
BROTHA. I love you all. I love you all. And also, he was a brother. He was a black man who had been there for a long time. And I tried to get into a lot of different schools. He was the only one who took the time to hear my story. I got a call 2 weeks later that I'm in.
Wow.
And as an expelled student where you have to check the box on every application that you send in, I'd begun to lose hope, and I was in a pretty dark place. And he gave me not just a ray of light, but he became a lighthouse for me to find myself again.
Wow.
So I go up there, I know one person, I graduate. By the end of that year, I'm student body president. But I'm student body president. If that had happened back at SMU, it's because I'm dope.
Well, you're the great do-gooder.
I'm the great do-gooder. It's what I do. I've been doing this my whole life.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But because I'd had that cataclysmic fall that I was responsible for, where I messed up, and then I saw that anything worth doing in life, yes, it requires elbow grease. Yes, it requires your own ingenuity and your own capacity to dedicate yourself to something, but it's going to require other people.
Yeah.
Somebody else has to open the door, participate, believe in you, right? Everything works that way. And I never forgot that lesson. So I knew that I didn't go through that experience just to go do whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Let me pause right there and ask a question about, okay, now you graduate, you got your degree in marketing. You've had these internships at Pfizer.
That's right.
So healthcare, first of all, right, it's an incredible story, one that we have not talked about.
Yeah.
And it explains a lot in terms of the man that you have become. So you're at Tulsa, you just finish up. You're thinking about this professional life.
Yeah.
What made you decide to stick and stay at Pfizer?
Because it was a job.
J-O-B.
It was a J-O-B.
Pay the bills.
Check the boxes, man.
Okay.
You know that's how we were growing up.
Yeah.
But this is you put your finger on exactly what it was. I was interning before all of the stuff happened at SMU, and then I ended up going to Tulsa. But after it happened, even as an intern, I felt that the life I was planning to live was inadequate to the epiphany that I just had. And not because the work itself isn't meaningful, it is. But I started to get this sense that I am supposed to be doing something different. I just didn't know what it was.
Okay.
And so when I tell you it took a multi-year process for me to go through the distillation of what that meant to me, I ended up with that mission statement. And that was about 2007. So that was my quarter life crisis when I wrote it.
Quarter life.
And even after I had the mission statement, it was another full year before I acted on it.
Okay.
When I was at SMU, we started Group Excellence, the mentor and tutoring company, out of our own dorms.
Nice.
Matter of fact, it ended up being part of their World Changer Shaped Here capital campaign. It was such a powerful story. And I knew that's where I needed to be, but we had gone in handcuffs because, especially for a brother who grew up where I was from, having a good job that gave you a car and a credit card. Everybody was complaining about gas. I was like, I don't even know. Swipe, let's go. Don't even care. Give me my receipt, but let's go. I didn't have to, I thought I was in the best possible scenario.
Yeah.
So when I switched and went over to Group Excellence, I took a financial step back, man. I wasn't getting paid as much on salary, and I certainly didn't have the benefits.
So let's pause right there.
Yeah.
Because I think there's somebody listening who might find themselves in a similar situation, maybe disadvantaged, may have come from a background where money was not plentiful. So the mindset is, hey, I just got to hold down what I have.
That's right.
And I think you can relate to that. And my question is, or maybe the question that I would ask you to give in terms of advice to those who find themselves, what made you decide to take a step back when you got a company car, credit card, life is good where you are? What drove that?
I got to a place where I could no longer be who I was not designed to be. And in order for me to get to that awareness, I had to ask the question, who am I? And going through that process, that's what led me to write the mission statement, because I needed to actually articulate this. There were things like swirling in my mind, but I hadn't made it concrete yet. And so I went through the exercise of why.
Okay.
So my first draft was the worst mission statement known to man. It was to be the best pharmaceutical sales rep the world has ever known. I knew that was wrong. I knew it. Because who cares?
I'm not laughing at you, but we have the traditional mission statement, and then we have the profound, which is what you started with a few minutes earlier.
Exactly. And then, about to sell these drugs. Best world over. But I knew that was wrong. I just needed to start somewhere.
Okay.
And so after every statement or iteration, I would say, why?
So for those listening, instead of thinking about, how can I hold this down?
Yeah.
Maybe it might be more advantageous to think about, what's your mission?
What's your mission? Who are you? Instead of asking what you're going to do, ask who you are. And take some time to sit with that. Like I said, it took me a minute. But once I nailed it, I was like, that's it. And if that's it, it's a if this, then this, then I knew I needed to get to moving. But I didn't want to because the money was good and we didn't have to pay for any of our prescriptions. It was nice. But man, there's something happened. So at the end of 2008, my brother had a really bad accident. My father was diagnosed with a cancer that would eventually take his life. And then my daughter was born.
Wow.
All of this happens within 90 days.
Trifecta, man, of events, right?
Brother.
Wow.
And so I said, got it. Because I was also reading a book, 1 Month to Live. So
I read that book myself.
Yeah. Chris and Carrie Shook.
Yes.
This pastoral couple. And the whole concept, the premise is basically, if you want to read the book, I'm basically, spoiler alert.
It's been out there a minute.
It's been out there a minute. It's like when people get mad and you're like, dang, man, spoiler alert. I was like, bro, man. That was season 2. It was multiple years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
If you had 30 days left with your life, what would you be doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
Other than skydiving, I would be moving.
So that was it. It's the combination of the book, these events in your life, and you thinking about what happened in college and recognizing there's more in store for my life than just being a pharmaceutical representative. So you go to Group Excellence.
Yep.
And you begin to make some transformation in the world of education. And with youth, that's another key component, right?
That's
to your story is impacting youth. So talk about what that experience was like as you're in that phase of life.
Man, we were all like early 20s, mid 20s. We were running this company. We didn't know what we were doing, but we had some great hunches, a lot of moxie, and we built an amazing culture. And the whole point was using college kids and young professionals to go in and be near peer tutors to high schools, middle schools, elementary school students. And man, against literally every odd, we grew. So 2011, we were the 5th fastest growing privately owned education company. I think that year we hit 15 million top line revenue, pretty decent margins. And we were in every major city in Texas. Eventually, we actually expanded. I forgot to put that in bio. We expanded throughout the country. Then we had a capitalization event, and then we're able to sell. That's what then led me to the Dallas Education Foundation. Because in the process of doing this, I was kind of the biz dev guy. So I'm out here, painting the town, letting folks know what we do, learning more, making connections. And then that's what brought me to the philanthropic space, because Group Excellence was actually a social enterprise. So we were, I guess, philanthropy adjacent, but all of ours were contracts with school districts, state agencies, things like that. But being civically involved is what opened up the world of nonprofit and philanthropy for me, which is why super dedicated to Dallas ISD. When the opportunity came, new superintendent, they were looking for someone to reboot the foundation that had been dormant. I came in and I was the reboot guy.
I see.
Yeah.
So you're now executive director, reboot this foundation, give it some legs, give it some energy, get some more people supporting this vision.
That's right.
That's what you did.
That's what I did. Okay. And then I got out because that was hard. Man.
You ran really fast. I like to call that, in my job back in the day, we had this period of 21 days roughly where the quarter closes. And you've got to consolidate all the numbers, get all the journal entries written, and prepare the forecast for the next quarter and beyond. And we call that a marathon sprint.
That's exactly what this job was.
So you were on a marathon sprint for 2 years.
Brother, listen, I've served my time in that. If there's a workforce version of that, I did. We did this Race to the Top project. It was the first thing that I did when I went over there. Mm-hmm. And that federal grant was a monster. So me working with Ashley Flores, now Carrie Holt, a couple of team members over at Dallas ISD. And man, I drove that. When we finished it, I drove it to the airplane, FedEx.
Oh, wow.
So that it could make it there on time the next day.
That's what we call hand carry in my industry. Semiconductors, we call that hand carry.
Brother, I get it in that. You talk about stress. I got shingles after that, man. Like that was I got an elderly person's disease because I had been working so hard. So that wasn't going to be a long-term job at all. But man, I learned a ton and we helped a lot of young people.
Okay. So for those listening, you're in a marathon sprint of your own. You're running really hard. You're running really fast. Make sure that you make it, I think, a not a forever job.
I call it scuba diving.
Okay. Explain that.
So especially if you're one of those kind of change agent type people, right? You come in Moxie and you might end up joining a large institution or it might be a smaller, doesn't matter, right? If you're going to take one of those jobs that's going to require that from you, you have to know that cannot be an interminable thing because it'll kill you, truly. So I call it scuba diving because you're going to go into a place that is not naturally built for a human being for a second.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're going to get down there and you are going to do whatever you got to do. The underwater welding. I don't know, we're doing some exploration or something, but you are built for the air. Like you're supposed to breathe at some point.
Above the water.
Above the water. So you got your little tank, you strap on, you get down there, and then at some point, I'm going to have to surface. And as you go into this, from day one, and as you work along the road, you have to be thinking about what does it look like after I'm not here?
Yeah.
Succession needs to be part of your actual daily job.
That's really good.
Yeah, because
That's really good.
You got to surface, then you got to pass the baton.
Okay, so speaking of succession planning, something that we talked about some months back. I won't say how many months, but some months back we talked about. And that's definitely something I want to get into as we go into the third part of today's conversation. And something that, as a young man, you recognized to be important. So there's a twofold I guess, way I want to ask this question.
For sure.
There's a succession plan as a young man. There's a mission statement as a young man. Just this week, I'm teaching at SMU, where we both have degree. Well, I have a degree in MBA from there, right?
Yeah, I got a partial degree. You know what I'm saying? Probably got my associates from there.
Oh my God, that was a Freudian slip.
Yeah.
All right, so I instruct MBA students up there, and we're actually talking about a personal mission statement just this last Monday night, right?
Good, yeah.
But these are mostly people who are far older than you were. So my question is, where did this surface from? The idea of having a succession plan, the idea of having a mission statement, where'd you get this from? All from your brain? Did you have advisors? Like, where does this come from?
It's a couple things, man. I live in my imagination quite a bit. I've always had a hard time. One of my struggles actually is being in the moment.
Okay.
Because I'm constantly thinking about what the future looks like. I'm constantly thinking about what the world is going to be. And not from a process planning and project management. I suck at that. I'm terrible at those kind of details, but I'm really good at envisioning what the world could be, right? Not just is going to be, but like, what are the possibilities? And that's a powerful asset if you can wrangle it, right? If you can bridle it. And so for me, I've never had a challenge thinking about the future. And because I am an optimist, I believe that future is actually going to happen. So for me, it's actually less likely, less realistic, less responsible for me to act like this thing isn't coming and start to do things to prepare for it.
Interesting. So you live in the future.
I live in the future.
So to some extent, it's a part of your DNA, and what you're naturally thinking about anyway is, when is this book going to end?
Right. And if I'm thinking far enough ahead, I get a choice to have the choose your own adventure type book as opposed to the one that's written for you.
Nice.
And that gives you the opportunity, or at least it's afforded me the opportunity to do the things that are ultimately in the best interest of the organizations that I'm with, the mission that they carry. Because the other thing that the SMU to University of Tulsa experience taught me is that it's not about me. Previously, I thought that I had the Midas touch. And this thing is going to work for the simple fact that I am here and breathing. Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. You're welcome, right? That's how I moved through the world. I never said any of this stuff out loud, but in the peeling of the onion and parsing through the experiences, that's what I believed. I no longer believe that. And I don't believe that there is the magical one, the Messiah effect. I believe that there are a lot of us out here. And if people are given the opportunities to be in the places where they shine, where their strengths really get to take root and are manifest, then they're going to be able to be those powerful contributors themselves, right? That's what led me to Big Thought eventually. I know I'm accelerating, but I went into the private banking space because, and you know, kind of tracking through, went from foundation to the private bank,
right?
Because I actually was thinking forward about what are the assets that I feel like I need to make a better impact for systemic change. And one of the things that I was going to do, I was either going to go get my MBA or I was going to do something that gave me real world street cred on some of these more structural big boy jobs, right?
Okay.
Because the unfortunate thing, even though like we built a business that was a $15 million business and made some folks involved wealthy, because it was dealing with kids, there's this discount that people put on
that.
it.
It's not sophisticated.
That's right.
That it's not professional.
That's right.
What have you.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so me going into a very, one of the largest financial institutions on the planet, one, there was a lot that I wanted to learn, but then two, I wanted to almost maybe Machiavellianly use the credibility of that institution to advance, strategic change even further.
Incredible, man. So there's this thing that you talked about so far, which is one, having a mission statement, asking the question why. And there's great resources out there. I could refer people to Purpose Driven Life, 30 Days to Live?
Yeah, one month to live,
right? I could refer you to a number of different resources. I think, what's this guy? Start With Why.
Yep, that's right. Yeah,
that's Simon Sinek, another great book. So having a mission statement is critical.
Yeah.
Whether or not you are futuristic, for those listening, you may not be futuristic. You may be kind of more near term. That's okay too.
That's perfectly fine.
Right? We need a variety of folks, but you're thinking about your future constantly.
Yeah.
And because you're thinking about your future, you're also thinking about how best to land this plane and close this book in a healthy way to some extent. That's what I'm picking up.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about my future, but I'm thinking about my future as it relates to the mission statement, because again, I don't want to go back to that place where I was coming home when I was at Pfizer. I was coming home, I was doing well. Like I was rep of the quarter as like a 21-year-old, and I was coming home with all of the things that should be giving me happiness.
Well, according to that wonderful mission statement that you wrote.
Yeah, exactly. In the world, Tim.
You're on your way.
We on the way. But man, when I came home, I was a husk. I was so depressed. Actually, that's actually how I got to my ADHD diagnosis, because I was thinking that I was depressed. And I was, actually. But I also realized that I was undiagnosed with attention deficit disorder too. But I realized, man, I'm one of those people. Not everybody is wired like this, and it doesn't have to be. People find meaning in all different types of ways. But I realized for my constitution, I had to be doing something during the day that had a material connection to widening opportunity for other people.
Got you.
And if I were doing that on a day, not in my off time, not on the weekends, not after work, like during work, I had to have that be a part of me. Then I knew, if you look at every step that I've made since I left Pfizer, it's been connected to that greater mission and my identity. And even though it's taken multiple forms, I've been very much locked in on it.
Yeah.
This is a part, Tim, that I was so surprised to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they tell you to make 5-year plans.
Yeah.
Right? What's your 5-year plan?
Yeah, what's your 5-year plan?
I mean, we learned that in Rose. They said,
We did.
They said, yeah, what's your 5-year plan?
That's right. That's right.
And I realized, this was my insight, that I ended up throwing away every 5-year plan I've ever made since 2008.
Yeah. By the way, if you're listening,
don't do the 5-year.
Don't do that.
Figure out who you are, because what I found is I didn't have enough imagination sitting there to try and orchestrate every single step over the next 5 years. I don't have enough imagination.
And you are imagination rich.
Exactly.
So with Byron Sanders, who is imagination rich, what hope do the rest of us have?
What hope must we have? But man, I can tell you, I've never been as fulfilled in life. It is not, but now I'll be clear too, because I don't want to, disclaimer, right? When the part where you start talking fast at the end of the medicine commercials, this does not mean you will be happy because it's easy.
Yeah.
It does not mean that things are going to go smoothly. It would have been easier, quite frankly, for me to just climb the ranks.
No question.
So much easier.
No question.
And I apologized to my wife because I told her, we're not going to have a normal life, and I'm sorry about this. I know you didn't sign up for this.
When did you tell her that?
I told her that after we were married. Because I didn't know it myself, bro.
The women out there like, my husband too. He did the same thing to me.
Yeah, she was bamboozled. And I admit that. And I was like, I'm sorry. I wish I'd have known, because I would have told you up front. But, man, I couldn't have dreamed to be where I am right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't dream it. And here we are, having an impact on so many different lives.
So a lot of people may or may not know Big Thought. Matter of fact,
Yes.
when you and I were serving together on the Dallas Mavericks Advisory Council, I was like, hey man, I saw that you Big Thought, but like, what is that? So currently,
Yes.
at the present moment,
Yeah.
you have relinquished one of your 2 titles. So you were president and CEO starting in 2018.
That's right.
Okay. And you are remaining president. So you're the forefront, the ambassador, if you will, for the mission of the organization.
Yep.
But tell us, for those who maybe don't know as much, what is Big Thought? What's the mission?
Big Thought, beautiful organization, founded in 1987. I took over in 2018. It is all about creating creators for a 21st century world. What we focus on is through a range of different programs and initiatives. The net effect is from 3 to 23 years old, we're working with young people to help them build all of those skills that we know matter in the 21st century world that are typically most expressed outside of the traditional classroom. After school programs, summer programs, apprenticeships, internships, things that allow a young person to get out and learn by doing. And we've given a name to it. We call that person the creator.
Nice.
A creator. A creator is building all of those skills that we used to call soft skills. You know what I mean?
Some people still do.
Some people still do. They better get up off that soft skills language, bro. That stuff is real. It matters. Right. It always has mattered.
It always has.
But now, because it's actually, strangely, in the world of technology, that's making all of the other, like, I'm a good math guy. Well, so is ChatGPT, my guy, and it's a lot faster than you, too.
Yep.
I hope you have something else. So if you aren't one of those critical thinkers, creative thinkers, ability to work with people, have basic level emotional intelligence, right? If you're not one of those people, you are becoming more replaceable.
Right.
Because quite frankly, you remember there was, for a long time, everybody's like, coding is the new language.
Yes.
It's come full circle. You know what the new coding language is now?
I'm going to embarrass myself, so I'm not going to even try to guess at what that is.
You actually know it. It's English.
Okay.
Because now you're talking to the computer.
Yes.
You're telling it to create this.
Right.
Literally using your mouth as the engineering component.
Right.
That's why we have whole jobs now, 6-figure jobs that is explicitly about prompt engineering shaping AI, right? I need somebody who can think. I need somebody who can analyze, read the report, and get insight from the report,
Correct.
as opposed to produce the report.
Yes.
So with that, strangely enough, you build that in art, theater, service learning, the STEM project where you get to actually build a thing and then go compete with other kids who built a thing and all. That's where you build those skills. That's what Big Thought does.
That's what Big Thought does.
That's what Big Thought does.
You fill in the gaps where maybe the traditional academic environment may not.
That's right.
Right.
And that's why we're partners, right? Because you have to learn the basics.
Mm.
You got to learn reading and writing and arithmetic. And you need a place for your imagination to actually for like a muscle.
Yes.
For you to build that muscle of imagination applied, which is creativity.
Wonderful. All right. So ages 3
to 23.
To 23.
Yeah.
And I mean, any idea how many students you've been able to impact through this journey?
We actually are pretty good about our data over there.
Okay.
So annualized, pre-pandemic, we were hitting at about 150,000 young people per year.
Wow.
Post-pandemic, it went down. And now we're up to, again, from head count in the North Texas area, we're talking about 60,000 young people, 70,000 young people. Around the country, through our consulting, it's closer to 500,000. And so, amazing team, phenomenal people, one of the best teams I've ever worked with in anything in life. And I will forever have Big Thought in my heart.
Hey, listeners, if you're busy, and I know you are, but you want to grow your leadership in an efficient and cost-effective way, I invite you to check out my on-demand digital leadership courses at bonafideleaders.com/courses. Now, you're wondering, what do I get in exchange for my purchase? Well, you'll get dynamic teaching and insights, and you'll leave with the tools and practical application you need to be a more effective and impactful leader, wherever you lead, at work or at home. You'll become more confident in your capabilities because you'll know your unique leadership style and how to apply it. You will know how to create powerful and engaging meetings and also how to better integrate your work and life. You'll get that and much, much more. Now, if that weren't enough, with your purchase, as my gift to you, you'll also be added to the Digital Bonafide Leaders community, a real community of leaders like you for networking, best practice sharing, and you'll have direct access to me. Go to the website and you'll find a link in the show notes, and you'll get instant access today. Yeah, I bet you will.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into the transition in just a moment. Before we do that, what you all may not know, although if you listen to the bio, you probably got some sense, my man Byron Sanders is a guy who has great depth and range in terms of breadth and circles that he's able to navigate in. Man, I'm just so curious. Like, for most of us, right? We go to Bank of America private bank and we kind of just stick and stay. Life is good, money's good. We go to Pfizer, we stick and stay. Okay, I'm going to work in DISD. I'm going to be a teacher. Then maybe I'll be a research person, and then I'll, maybe be in administration, and we just kind of stay on that path. You are able to run through, look at the accolades from the NCAA, right? Living legends for community leaders to boards that you sit on. I'm just curious, what's happening that's enabling you to be successful in all of these different circles that you find yourself in?
So I actually asked myself that because I think it's important to not just be competent, but be competent and aware of why you're competent. There are some people, if we're using a sports analogy, some people would say that Jordan is hyper competent, maybe not as aware of all the components that it took to be competent, because there's a lot of other people who weren't competent underneath him. Right? From his GM roles, and nobody would say, man, I don't think anybody ever was going to ask him to be a coach, right? But then Bill Russell was hyper competent, obviously one of the best centers ever played the game.
1960s for those listening, maybe late 1950s, 1960s, won a bunch of championships.
That's right. And what's really interesting is that a lot of people don't realize he was the first black coach to win an NBA championship.
And he was coach and player in one.
Can
you imagine?
I can't. That's why I know this man, hyper competent and hyper aware of why he was competent and how other people could be too.
And in a society that not everybody valued a black man's opinion.
In Boston.
Let's
even put that extra cap on that, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to be, one, I'm a Jordan fan. I still think he's the best basketball player to ever play the game.
No shame to LeBron. I know some of you all listening, you love it, and that's fine.
And I go back and forth, but today I'm still a Jordan. But Bill Russell is kind of that example of me of being both hyper competent and hyper aware. So what I did was I kind of distilled, all right, why am I comfortable in pretty much any place? And it goes back to childhood,
I was going to ask you that. Yep.
So I grew up, first school, Adele Turner, Oak Cliff, Redbird. Everybody was black. Everybody, it just felt like going more to family reunions and church than school, right? And even today, if Miss Black says, I'm proud of you, baby, that on Facebook or something, that's a good day for me, right? We had one white kid in 6th grade, and I was like, this is what Martin Luther King was talking about. One white kid came, and I was like, this is it. Wow. Okay, so then middle school, my mom told me about this talented and gifted school. And so I applied to the talented and gifted school, and then I'm at a school that's a school within a school, but we're in East Dallas, mostly Latino community. Okay. And then now for the first time, I'm going to school in classes in our tag, talented and gifted classes. There's white kids, Latino kids, black kids. And so I'm in this mixed environment. I was like, wow, this is cool. And then a mentor tells me about high school, Donald Payton, who is the historian for the Dallas area. This is another brother, elderly black man.
You're going to get me in trouble.
I know, I am. This is my goal. He told me about Green Hill. Okay. Green Hill's a private school on the north side of town. Right. And I went up there and I took a tour and they had peacocks just walking around. I was like, why y'all have birds of paradise? And they're like, I don't know, we just do. And I was like, well, I want to go to the school with birds of paradise too. So I go up there and I'm in a school that's mostly white. Mm-hmm. And then I would learn to find out, mostly Jewish. I had never been around people, from the Jewish community before. And so I do all of this stuff and I build genuine relationships at every stop. Yeah. And I went from Southern Dallas all the way to far North Dallas. Mom taught in West Dallas, spent a lot of time over there. So I'd always been in these different places, and I was so confident in being me.
That's awesome.
Because my school, elementary, Adele Turner, I never was taught. I grew up around Black excellence, so I didn't have an assumption that I was supposed to think anything differently. Mm-hmm. And that was a gift. Yeah. Because when I would then get messages later on that maybe the expectations were different, I at least had some contextual grounding that I could go and reach back and anchor myself into. So it was the early years being in different scenarios, situations, having to build relationships in places and spaces, and then also recognizing the common humanity of all of us in these different places that made me very comfortable changing it up and going to a different place.
So I gotta jump in here because, and I'm smiling on the inside and outside because we've talked a few times. We even were at the same event for Leadership Dallas, where you were presenting and I was presenting at the same time. And there's so much of what you're saying that I can relate to. My experience growing up was similar to what you're describing, being in different environments where you just kind of have to figure it out. Yeah. So when I got to Texas Instruments and was in the diversity team, my ability to kind of seamlessly fold into that thing was abnormal for many people, not me.
That's right.
And I think, like you say, I don't even think I realized or appreciated it. Maybe you did. I want you to talk about that if you did, that it was your upbringing and the fact that you got exposure to East Dallas and to South Dallas and to an all-black school and to Peacocks school.
Yeah, right.
You got exposure to a lot of different things that afforded you a sense of identity, particularly, I would say, in those elementary age years that you talked about, where that was formed and you believed that you could be excellent and great.
You know what seems consistent? To answer that question, it seems consistent that not as a result of my choices, but just what the world brought. I got early experiences that gave me skills probably sooner than most people get access to those experiences.
And the types of skills that you got is what people would call, again, the soft skills.
Exactly.
The creator skills.
That's right.
That are necessary. And I would argue definitively to anyone who wanted to have this conversation.
100%.
They are the most critical skills for those of us who aspire to be leaders of organizations and entities and people and to be able to affect positive, enduring change.
100%. That's it. Because honestly, truly, we're humans.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the measure of what we do is our impact on other human beings. And so, yeah, you might be the smartest computational expert over here or there. You might be the best runner, right? Like, but if you ultimately cannot pair your excellence in that particular thing with the ability for it to be applied toward human beings' lives, well-being, wherewithal, it's not 100%. There are surely some people who grow up, go ahead being a-holes the majority of their life, and they can just be thriving.
You know what? Sadly, that still remains true
It does.
in 2024. Yeah.
But by and large, if you're the person who knows how to connect with folks, help other people get to the fullness of their potential, their lives, I promise you, you're going to do pretty good in life. No matter what it is that you are set to do, you're going to do pretty good.
You reminded me of a quote, and I'm not going to do it quite right. Maybe you've heard it, so you can correct me if I get it wrong. Zig Ziglar said something that if you spend your life doing everything you can to help other people be successful, you'll always have a place, or something like that.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Right.
And let me also make sure people don't think that I'm being Pollyanna. It does not mean that if this is what you do, you're going to be rich. Right? It does not mean that if this is your approach in life, that you're going to get everything that you want. What I am saying, though, is that fulfillment is accessible if this is the lens through which you approach life. And in fact, it's that specific belief that makes me so uncomfortable with status quo, because I see a lot of times our systems in society are not built oftentimes in order for the maximum amount of people to maximize who they are. That is why education, doesn't matter what career I transition to, I'm going to have my eye deadly focused on shifting this system, because there's no other system where you have required time with a human being for essentially 13 years of their life, I would say in the most impressionable years of their life, for about anywhere between 6 to 8 hours a day, right? Without them having done something wrong. Because, we got jail, but that's not what, we're not going to get the outcomes we want from jail.
No, we're not.
There's no other institution in society where that's the case.
That's correct.
And for us not to build that in a way that cracks open the code of people being able to maximize themselves, then it's a waste. We've wasted that time. So break the system and make it more adept at that end.
Yeah.
Right?
Powerful stuff, bro. Powerful stuff. I'm overwhelmed just thinking about how many things we have in common.
Yeah.
Before having this conversation, I did not know, and I'm enjoying it. So we've talked some about your leaps. We've talked some about the mindset that it takes for you to facilitate healthy growth and relationships in a variety of different spheres and spaces.
Yeah.
This last thing I want to make sure that we hit is transition. This last leap. And of course, it's not the final leap.
Yeah, it's the next leap. It's the next leap.
But it's the next leap.
Yeah.
So some months ago, we were talking about maybe doing, a podcast. And you were like, oh, I think that would be perfect.
Yeah.
And you made mention of something you were thinking about, wanting to really make, again, as you live it, an impact.
Yeah.
All right. So, again, currently CEO, just recently took that title off, still president of Big Thought.
Yeah.
Now you're making a move back to a space that you originally started in healthcare. Talk to us about this leap that you are making at this very moment right now.
By the time this drops, I have shed that last title with Big Thought as president. I'll move to becoming an ambassador where, I'll do cameos from time to time here and there. There's a book that we're co-promoting together. It's called Built for More, the role of out-of-school time in preparing youth for the future of work.
Nice.
However, I have moved into a new space.
Okay, let's talk about it. Where is that new space?
I am now the CEO of Arete Health. Arete is the Greek word for excellence. It actually comes full circle because, like you said, I started off in Pfizer. Pharmaceuticals, so it's the healthcare space.
Yeah.
I learned very quickly they only gave one flying flip, but not two, about the latest study or glossy chart that I would bring in there and show the doctors when I was trying to convince them to write this prescription versus another. The next, and actually most important question for them, of course, is does it help my patients? But there's lots of things that help their patients. The thing that they're going to use is what could be paid for by health insurance.
Sure.
And what was able to be paid for by health insurance that didn't create a logistical and operational nightmare for them, their nurses, their techs, and their staff.
It's no different than the way the neural pathways work in our brain. We seek the easiest path possible.
Got to, right? For a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
And so I learned that, right? Feather in the hat, I put that in the parking lot, and I've kept it because it has now come back full circle. As the CEO of Big Thought, we started off at $7.5 million, and by the time I have left, we're about a $14 million organization, almost double. It remains very difficult for us to take care of our people. Paying for healthcare in the nonprofit sector is a very difficult proposition, whether you are a underfunded, especially if you're an underfunded organization, but even if you're well-funded, because usually the resources that come anytime there's a gift to you, donation, grant, whatever, it's a designated resource, which means I have to use it for whatever they gave me.
Those said purposes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if you build in a little bit of administrative overhead in there, there's a limit. You can't put in too much, which means that money, that goes to the bricks and mortar. That money, that goes to maybe even the technology. That money, that goes to the programs, but it doesn't go to taking care of your people. So you try and find and scrimp and scrape for every little margin that you can get in order to just provide basic health care to your folks. And I was hit straight in the chest with this in 2019 when our team lost one of the best human beings on the planet, I'm convinced. This brother, his name is Adam Tench. He went by Rage Thy Poet, spoken word artist, amazing, known all over the country. Would go and win competitions all over the country. Also saved a number of our young people's lives by their own admission. He worked in our juvenile system. He worked in our spoken word programs in the schools. He was amazing. He'd been with us for a number of years, and he passed away in 2019 at the end of it. And when you really peel back all the layers, he passed away because he was uninsured and because he was buying half-used albuterol on the black market.
Wow.
He was having to go to get most of his health care from the ER. And when he passed away, his hesitancy to even dial 911 is because for all the reasons that a person would dial 911 in society, the only one you're going to get a bill for is for your own health.
Yeah.
Right? That ambulance ride is no joke.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And so in the richest nation on the planet, with more moxie and ingenuity, if you ask us, than any other place in the world and in history, the fact that that is still our story felt really wrong to me.
Wow.
And so I went deep, was trying to find some solutions, was even working with some friends over at the city. And was just kept running into roadblocks and barriers. And I got with my brother, my friend, Carl, who is my co-founder and who, I'm working along with. We built an amazing system based off of some really important learnings from about a couple of years of work. And initially, I was going to be on the board of this organization because I was like, nonprofit. But the closer and closer we got to these insights and what could really happen, and then I started to think about Rage again, and I started to think about people like him and some of the other people that we had lost along the way or who had struggled, where you are in the world of a juxtaposition, being a poverty-fighting organization with your own people dealing with poverty. And I was like, no, this is it. This is it. This is the next iteration of the mission statement. And for some people, I love the look on their faces when I tell them that. They're like, that's different. But for me, it's as natural as breathing. It's as fluid as the next step in a marathon. Because from this standpoint, we are leveraging insurance innovation to fundamentally change the healthcare system. Our theory is if we can bring true game-changing preventative healthcare to places where it not typically been, and if we can go and structure these deals with the latest game-breaking biotech that's been sitting on the shelves, it's available for market, but because it's not paid for by broadly, big insurance, then the only people getting access to it are folks who happen to have stumbled across knowing about it and have the cash to pay. If we can then use the savings that we bring to our small and mid-sized organizations, and we take just a fraction of those savings and we start to pay for a pre-cancer screen that'll screen for 50 different types of cancers. You can catch it at stage 1. You can even help save people's lives from pancreatic cancer. If we can do that, if we can bring a continuous glucose monitoring, not just to people after they have diabetes, but before, so that they can make different decisions and they have the right kind of information. If we can just put in people's physical a cardiovascular mapping that allows people to take essentially slivers of what would essentially become an MRI, but stitch it all together, it creates this 3D imaging. Then you can find the soft spaces that have been called widowmakers, because you could be a perfectly healthy presenting person. You could be an Iron Man out there and still be 6 months away from dying. How many lives could we save? We can create a healthcare system instead of a sick care system. That's what Arete Health is doing.
Okay, so part 2,
yeah,
we're going to have to talk about transforming, oh my God, like you said, sick care to real healthcare. And I'm sure there are some listening in the healthcare industry. Some will doubt. Some will say, we can't do it for that reason. Some will say we've always done it this way. Others are optimistic. They say, man, finally, some ingenuity,
right,
some creativity in a space that is long in need of it.
Yeah.
You say what to both sides as you navigate forward this mission?
What I would say is that there's actually a lot of people out there who've been thinking, building, innovating. My statement, so I'd say, yes, sisters and brothers, you absolutely right. There's some innovative ways to do it. The problem is the democratization of that innovation has not been readily available. And there's some norms, beliefs. Most of it, Tim, what I'm finding, most of it isn't even with the operational limitations. It's with belief.
My goodness.
If we believe a few things differently, then we'll start to do things a little differently. If we believe that, yes, we want to make money, but we don't have to make that much money.
Right. Right.
Just accept a little less money.
Could I be okay with, instead of 250 G's, what if it's 220 G's?
What if?
And with that extra 30K, what could be done?
What if, Tim? Because our goal is, if we can demonstrate what can happen, and we have multiple different levers that we pull. If we can save, let's say, a nonprofit with about 100 people, if they're paying $1 million for their health care, if we could take them down to 844,000, 1.2 to 844,000, which is a very real live scenario.
Okay.
Now you have over $300,000 that you've saved in cash as a nonprofit. For me, now I got $300 back into the kitty, undesignated, general ops. That's a dream, my guy.
Right.
Now, all we say is take just a fraction of that 300, just a fraction. And with it, now you can build for everybody else, everyone on your plan, access to all of those different types of biotech, latest and greatest that I was just telling you about. That could fundamentally save many people's lives. What you'll also find in that is that you end up saving money significantly more in the long run.
Right.
People are more productive.
Exactly.
People will stay with you too, right? So your retention kicks up because I'm getting what I need here.
Right.
I'm getting what I need in fulfillment or doing a job or just my paycheck, whatever, but also This is a great place where I got the best healthcare benefits.
It's a benefit. Benefits matter.
Come on, man.
Benefits matter significantly, particularly for those of us who may have health challenges in our home.
That's right.
Loved ones who are sick, what have you. Yeah, benefits matter.
Yeah. And there was a study that showed we get so proud of our innovation here, and we should be. But the average life cycle to go from inception to being widely available in healthcare, in medical practice, for one innovation or solution, it could be medical, it could be, biotech, 17 years.
Well, that's the length of a patent, is it not?
Yes, right? 17 years.
Yeah.
So, and that's before. So in the middle of that is FDA approval.
Right.
Right. We're not even talking. It's not approved yet.
Right.
But what we're saying is, biotech is excited about this because they're like, okay, now I actually see a super highway to get to more patients, even while we're in the process of getting to our FDA indication. FDA indication, just for all of our listeners out there, means that you get approved by the Food and Drug Administration to be a approved solution to be written and paid for by insurance and a number of different other mechanisms for this specific disease state.
Right.
And
it's a ticket.
It's a ticket.
Yeah.
You punch your ticket.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, drug companies, biotech solutions, they know they might be good for a bunch of different things, but they'll only study one because studying all of them is too expensive. So they'll go through, they'll get their indication, and then insurance can pay for them for that very specific, narrowly defined thing.
Sure.
But if a doctor wants to use it for something else that they know works and that they've seen work, it's not approved. Can't pay for it. We are not allowed to do common sense things because the current healthcare system that we call a sick care system creates the poor incentives for us to do uncommon sense things.
Awfully hurtful things. So I recently watched, I won't call it a documentary, but there's a particular doctor who seeks to educate the public about the costs of healthcare.
Yep.
And I did this actually in coordination with what we're doing with Leadership Dallas. So I was given to this group to go and listen to and watch. And it is truly fascinating, the incentives. And this is the case, whether it be in education, whether it be in insurance, whether it be in business. There's carrots and there's sticks all over the place. Our tax code, full of them. And what I hear you saying is that between insurance innovation, biotech firms, stuff just sitting empty, you have the ability now to go actually impact real healthcare prevention.
Yeah, that's right.
Which ultimately saves money for the employers, and it extends the livelihoods and perhaps serves as a bridge to enable more productive workers.
100%.
That's what I hear you saying.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
And we're taking it a step further. So one, we're including part-time people in this conversation.
Interesting. Okay.
That is not something that you usually get.
Not traditionally.
The second thing, or kind of the last thing is, what we're also saying is that this insurance company and our clients are simply a private sector use case for how the entire system needs to shift. So we have an institute component that's designed for research. So we're going to be telling the stories and presenting the reports and data of what's happening with these patients, these employees, and the employers broadly.
Nice.
Because the goal is, if we can latch this preventative component as robustly as we're being able to produce it, if we can latch that into, let's say, Medicaid at a state level, if we can get people to really, really embrace, there's some components. We've dipped our toe into food as medicine, fitness as medicine. If we can start to embrace that and we can latch that into the largest payer for medical coverage in this country, which is the federal government, if we could do that at the Medicaid space, no group of people have been furthest from health than those who don't have a lot of money and have lived in circumstances or come from areas where making the best decisions for their well-being isn't accessible or is very little accessible. Yeah. Right? If we can do that now, you're talking about structural change, because once the federal government shifts, that shifts the whole Overton window, and everybody has a completely different expectation of what's possible.
All right. Arete Health.
Yes, sir.
My man, Byron Sanders, now the CEO of Arete Health, transitioning out of Big Thought. And the last thing I want to make sure we cover is the succession plan for you to leave Big Thought. Guess what, folks? He didn't just say, oh, let me flip a coin. let me see what I'm feeling like this morning. Yeah. This is a young man. And I want you to just walk people through the succession plan process that you originated, orchestrated, worked in coordination with the board, I presume.
Absolutely.
Help people have a sense of what that looks like.
It all started with a foundation of trust. It had to be trust with my board chair specifically. Vinay Hammond is a godsend. She is wonderful. She was my chair at the time that I decided to speak it out loud. But then two, the person who I saw as the successor. I needed to at some point be able to say that out loud to that person and know that they weren't gonna go crazy with it, right? Abuse that belief in them. Mm-hmm. So there had to be this trust that I knew who I was working with in this place, and I could be transparent to the degree that I needed to be in order to have even the initial conversation. Yeah. But to the point earlier, I was imagining what would it look like. I didn't know that this was where I was going to go when I first started the machinations. It was 2 years in advance. And I just knew because of a great, brilliant brother. His name is Nicholas Pierce. I was in a leadership session by the Surge Institute, phenomenal leadership group for nonprofit leaders of color across the country. And Power Surge was my cohort. And this guy came in and he said, are you building a monument or a movement? Mm. And I was like, whew, monument or a movement. But I'd never heard it as succinctly put when, you know, it's not about me. Mm. And if I have had the best tenure at a place, if I had had the best stretch, and I leave and they got my statue right there, right? There's a bus somewhere, or a plaque, or a sticky note. But you didn't pass that baton well. Yeah. What was it for? It could all disappear. You literally are, it's a coin toss at that point. So you build the succession plan. You be intentional. You get a bench and you start treating them like that, right? Invest in people and slowly reveal as necessary the opportunities for them to demonstrate what you might have as a hunch that this person could potentially be at. And then eventually you become very clear with your intentions. And I did. I talked with Erin Offord.
The new CEO.
New CEO. Yep. And I told her, I was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I'm not going to be here forever. Would you potentially be interested in walking this journey with me? She took some time to think about it, but she said yes. Mm-hmm. And I started to make moves that in hindsight that my team gets.
Of course.
But, you know, it wasn't entirely clear to everybody at the time, but also it made sense because she was the right leader. And then eventually I got to a place where I told my chair, I was like, hey, in a year, I won't be here. I don't know where I'm going to be, but I know I'm not going to be here. And it's not because there's anything wrong with here. It's because I think that's the best thing for this organization. And matter of fact, everything is right. I think the time to do this is when you're on the upswing. If you're moving with momentum, then that person comes in with a tailwind and not a headwind. Yes. And that's what's fair.
Yes, man, that's such good wisdom. Mm-hmm. And when people who are listening, you're thinking about your leap, particularly if you're in an executive role, a leadership role, where you've got people under your command, if you will. People are looking to you. Yeah. Their stake is in the organization, this company, whatever it is that you're a part of. Being able to transition it when life is good is, like you say, fair to the person. And maybe some would even say better than fair, because sometimes we inherit things that maybe are messy or dirty when we get into them. But having had the opportunity to be at the helm for 6 years as you have, I think handing it off in the fashion in which you did, I just applaud a nonprofit. Right?
We don't do that a lot.
Doing things in such an orderly fashion. There are, believe me, for-profit institutions who could greatly learn from what you all just did. All right, I want to wrap on this. So we started with talking about some people in your life who are galactic.
Yes.
So I just want to end on, we've talked about Byron Sanders, the professional, the guy who's got these accolades, who navigates these different worlds. Mm-hmm. Just talk a little bit about family, what that means to you in the context of you living in this imaginative world.
Celeste is my best friend. We've known each other since I was 4'11" and 90 pounds.
For those who are not watching on YouTube, or even if they are, they may not be able to tell. He is definitely not 4'11".
I'm not 4'11" anymore. Thank God. I am not 4'11". But when I got to Green Hill in 9th grade, I was. And you know, they got the elementary, the middle school, and the high school all on the same campus. Mm-hmm. So I walked in, I'm checking in, and they're like, the middle school is that way, young man. I was like, I'm supposed to be here. I promise you. My name is Byron Sanders, and it's on that road right there. You can find me right. I was so short. But in the glorious summer of 1999, I got a growth spurt 6 inches over the summer. My knees were in terrible pain, but it was the most beautiful pain ever.
And are you saying there's some connection between your height gain
yes.
and the Celeste relationship?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
She said it herself, and this does not make her shallow because I get it. She's like, yeah, if you didn't hit that growth spurt, I don't know if we would have been a thing. And I was like, that's fine, because she's a little taller. She played basketball, all that kind of stuff. I just prefer not to have that big a height difference. And I was like, listen, everybody got their preferences. I got it. I just need to be consistent. And we got to be great friends, man. And we've been inseparable ever since. I would drive her car behind the bus to the games. Because she played, and I would go to her game because we need to then drive. We didn't have to go back to school on the bus.
That's right.
We just drive home.
That's right.
Right. So we just got to be best friends, and then eventually started dating in 2000, and we've been together since 2000. Got married in 2006, and 18 years on in, man. Today is better than yesterday, and I know that sounds cliche, but I don't care. It is what it is. Call me basic. It's fine. She's amazing.
I'm going to call you blessed.
There we go. Blessed.
I'm going to call you blessed.
Blessed, not basic. Come on now. That'll preach.
What about these kids, man? Tell me about these kids.
Bailey and Bryce. Bailey just turned 16. Bryce just turned 15. They are amazing kids. Bailey is my type A, super organized. She reminds me where my keys are. Bryce gets everything honest from this dude right here. Got the ADHD and all this stuff. I have never met another person, though, with a heart as big as that kid's. And I've learned a lot from each of them. Bailey taught me, we used to say, you don't, she used to say herself, I see things in black and white. And I told her one day, I was like, things aren't necessarily black or white. She's like, oh, no. I meant, how I Love Lucy is black and white. I was like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, well, it's all without color, but you can tell the hair from the skin or the sky from the grass. And it's because even though it's all black and white, it's on a scale.
Wow.
So there's tiny differences. I was like, and she didn't use the word nuance, but she basically described there's nuance. So she said, when I see things in black and white, I mean, I see.
Very interesting.
I was like, whoa, that's pretty good.
Let me bring her on the podcast
exactly.
next week.
Maybe we need to bring her in. I was like, dang, that's a bar.
Yeah.
And then Bryce, again, love is his first thing and his last thing. And that's what he moves with. And he's a rambunctious young kid with a beautiful imagination, and also he loves. Yeah. And so I that is my family. They keep me grounded. They keep me rooted. And that's why in my mission statement, after my faith, they are the number 2 thing in life for me. Yeah. So, yeah, man, that's the fam bam.
I definitely wanted to end on that because family plays a role for all of us in our success, mine included. Yeah. I am not here without the strength, right, that comes from family.
Man.
So look, what have we gotten from today? Hey, get yourself a personal mission statement.
Do it.
Ask that question, why?
ASAP.
if you can't live in imagination, at least explore your imagination.
Yes.
Begin with the end in mind. That's a Covey tip, meaning that be futuristic.
Yeah.
Be thinking about the fact that the book's going to close, the story's going to end. How do you want it to end? Storybook ending. You can put that together. There is beauty in having diverse experiences as a young person, especially, that enable us to have maybe outsized skills and emotional intelligence later on in life.
There you go.
Wow, so much. Succession plan. And now the CEO of healthcare, or a health company called Arete. If people want to know more about you, if they want to connect with you, they want to learn more about your new ventures, whatever you're into, how do people find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Byron K. Sanders. So the initials would not just be BS, BKS, no, but Byron K. Sanders on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, same situation. And by this time, I'm pretty sure the website's going to be up. So you can come learn a little bit more about us and our new venture, including Rage's story, at aretehealth.com, ARETE health.com.
It's beautiful. This has been dope is the word that I'm going to use. I've enjoyed this so much. Yeah. So happy that you came on. And keep on thriving, man, in what you're doing, making an impact to uplift other people. I'm just happy about what you're doing. Love what you're doing. Just want to encourage you to keep it going.
Brother, I appreciate what you're doing, because you giving a platform for folks to come out here and kind of walk through their life and talk about the things that, you know, we've accumulated across every step, brother. That's everything. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening. If you got value from this podcast, don't keep it a secret. Subscribe, leave a rating or review, and share it with someone you know. Until next time, remember, our world is starving for bona fide leaders. Take your leadership to the next level by applying at least one thing you heard today.